I recently attended a safety course at a local gun shop where I was determined not to buy anything. Clearly, impulse control is a bit of an issue for me, so I wound up with this. This is the Firestar M40, made by, I'm gonna try this, Star Bonifacio Echeverria in Eibar, Spain. Although the company has roots going back much further, the firearms business began in 1905. Their big break seems to have been manufacturing a version of the Gabilondo Ruby pistol for the French during the First World War. The star name you see stamped on the slide, along with the logo, were registered in 1919 and marked all weapons manufactured after that point. Unfortunately, Star was one of several arms manufacturers to go bankrupt in the 90s. Star, along with another Spanish arms maker, Astra, combined to become Aster, after both went out of business in May of 1997. Strangely, Interarms, the company that brought Star pistols to the US, appears to have been purchased by High Standard Firearms after the death of Interarms' founder in 1998. It seems that Interarms is now operated as a supplier of parts and accessories only. The Firestar pistol was designed as a concealed carry gun and came in either 9mm as the M43 or 40 Smith & Wesson as the M40 and were produced from 1990 up until Star shut down in 1997, while a 45 caliber version called the M45 was made from 1992 to 1997. The steel construction and nickel finish is what made this pistol stand out in a display case surrounded by matte black polymer pistols, and at least according to Genetron.com, the nickel variant of the M40 was only produced in 1997. This model weighs in at 30.35 ounces with a 3.39-inch barrel and measures 1.2 inches wide at its thickest point. It is 4.62 inches tall and 6.5 inches long. Here you can see a pretty typical layout with a slide lock, magazine release, and safety, all with large, grippy surfaces that are much easier to use than a lot of more modern guns I've handled. The guy working behind the counter on the day I bought this was able to tell me that the gentleman who sold it to them sold a number of other guns and seems to have been a bit of a collector. Mine came in an alarmingly bright green Pelican case along with not one, not two, but 4 magazines, including 2 extended 8-round magazines along with the 2 Star branded 6-round ones. He was also able to tell me that the gun was in reasonably good shape and that their gunsmith did very little to it to get it ready to sell and that they were confident it would work reliably. With both Star and Interarms no longer existing in the form they did at the time this gun was originally made, it may be difficult to find parts. I've looked on eBay and it seems that basic parts such as springs and firing pins are available but not terribly common. Another feature of this gun I like is the way the safety works. From a few of the sources I found, it seems to have been designed to be carried cocked and locked, as the safety can be applied once the hammer's cocked. This would make drawing the weapon and getting it ready to fire a much faster and easier process in a defensive situation. I do realize, of course, that this is not unique to the Firestar, but it does seem to be less of a common feature among more modern guns. Disassembly is relatively simple. Pull the slide back until these 2 tick marks line up. Then press the protruding pin on the right side of the gun and the entire slide lock assembly will pop out, allowing the slide to pull forward and off. Be careful when putting it all back together. I'm so used to my Glocks and the way the guide rod fits back in that I continue to miss this point protruding from the M40s, and the hole it slots into when reassembling. I'm not very familiar or experienced with the 40 Smith & Wesson round. I have family and friends who swear by them, but most guns that come in that caliber also come in 9mm, and given the price difference in ammo, I've never seen much of a point. However, the size, weight, and caliber of the M40 seemed to me to be a pretty good fit for a concealed carrier or defensive gun. On the range, I feel that I was proven at least partially right. To test it, I took the M40 along with my Glock 26 and fired them side by side. The Firestar definitely feels like it has a more powerful kick, but the heavy steel frame makes it feel much more manageable than I would have expected. A big benefit for me is the way the spent brass ejects sideways. I'm not sure what the problem is, but both of my Glocks have a tendency to just every once in a while eject almost straight up, and hot shell either comes down on top of my head or dangerously close to getting stuck in the collar of my shirt. The slide design of the M40 meant that every shell ejected predictably to the right. In terms of reliability, I don't know that I would trust myself to make much of an assessment at this point, as I've only put about 150 rounds through it. I can say that I've had at least 2 failures to feed with Winchester ammunition, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. Something I noticed when shooting, which might be noticeable in the video, is that the slide seemed to come back harder than I expected, and had a slow, springy feeling to it. The sensation is difficult to describe, but it felt as though the slide came back harder but more slowly than on other guns, and even felt as though it were springing forward by rubber bands or bungee cords, and caused my hand to jerk more than it normally would. My first thought would be that it is due to the heavier all-steel design, but I've shot 1911s and other steel guns without feeling anything like this before. My guess would be that the recoil spring is a bit worn out, and that, combined with the movement of my hand, is preventing the slide from coming back far enough to advance the next round. If anyone has any ideas about this, please leave a comment below. Finally, I decided to see which gun was more accurate for me between the Firestar and the Glock 26. Now, just a warning, I'm not a particularly good shot, and I've done absolutely nothing to the sights on the Firestar. I decided to practice by shooting at the top 2 targets on a 5-target sheet, and then firing 8 rounds out of each at the lower 2 at 7 yards. And the results appear to be 6 shots in the 9-point area and 2 in the 7-point area with the Glock. It looked to me like this hole here was probably made by 2 shots. With the Firestar, I put 4 in the 9-point area. Yeah, I'm counting those on the line as 9. 3 in the 8, and 1 in the 7. So that gives 68 points with the Glock versus 67 points with the Firestar. Hopefully this video is helpful to anyone considering one of these guns. I'm not sure that I would recommend relying on this as your main or only carrier defense gun. The lack of support and availability of parts worries me, and the weight would definitely be a negative attribute for some. That being said, I really like mine and would recommend picking one up if you were able to find one in decent condition for a reasonable price. For example, mine was around $250 even with the case and extra magazines. Thank you for watching, and as this is my first video like this, please feel free to leave constructive feedback below.